Chapter 38. And at that time it came to be that Yehudah left his brothers and turned aside to a man, an Adullamite, whose name was Kira. And Yehudah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua, and he took her and went in to her. So she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name And she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And she conceived yet again and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Keziph when she bore him. And Yehudah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Yehudah's firstborn, was evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and Yahweh took his life. And Yehudah said to Onan, Go in to your brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up an heir to your brother. And Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, and it came to be, when he went in to his brother's wife, that he spilled on the ground, lest he should give an offspring to his brother. But what he did displeased Yahweh, so he took his life too. Then Yehudah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah is grown. For he said, Lest he also die as his brothers did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And after a long time, the daughter of Shua, Yehudah's wife, died. And Yehudah was comforted and went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Kira the Adullamite. And it was reported to Tamar, saying, See, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. And she took off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which was on the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as a wife. And Yehudah saw her, and reckoned her for a whore, for she had covered her face. And he turned aside to her by the way, and said, Please let me come in to you. For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What do you give me to come in to me? And he said, Let me send you a young goat from the flock. And she said, Do you give me a pledge until you send it? So he said, What pledge should I give you? And she said, Your seal and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. And he gave them to her, and went in to her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and removed her veil, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Yehudah sent the young goat by the hand of his friend the Adullamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he did not find her. And he asked the men of that place, saying, Where is the cult prostitute who was beside the way to Enaim? And they said, There was no cult prostitute in this place. And he returned to Yehudah and said, I have not found her. And the man of the place also said, There was no cult prostitute in this place. And Yehudah said, Let her take them for herself, lest we become despised. For I sent this young goat, and you have not found her. And it came to be about 3 months after, that Yehudah was informed, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has whored, and see, she has conceived by whoring. And Yehudah said, Bring her out, and let her be burned. When she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man to whom this belonged, I am pregnant. And she said, Please examine whose these are, the seal and the cord and the staff. And Yehudah examined and said, She has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah my son. And he never knew her again. And it came to be at the time for giving birth, that see, twins were in her womb. And it came to be, when she was giving birth, that the one put out his hand. And the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand, saying, This one came out first. And it came to be, as he drew back his hand, that see, his brother came out. And she said, How did you break through? This breach be upon you. So his name was called Perez. And afterward his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread on his hand. So his name was called Zerach. Chapter 39. And Joseph had been taken down to Mitzrayim. And Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, a Mitzrite, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. And it came to be that Yahweh was with Joseph, and he became a prosperous man, and was in the house of his master the Mitzrite. And his master saw that Yahweh was with him, and that Yahweh made all he did to prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his eyes, and served him, and he appointed him over his house, and gave into his hand all that he had. And it came to be, from the time that he appointed him over his house, and all that he had, that Yahweh barak the Mitzrite's house, for Joseph's sake. And the barakah of Yahweh was on all that he had in the house, and in the field. And he left in Joseph's hand all that he had, and he did not know what he had except for the bread which he ate. And Joseph was handsome in form and handsome appearance. And after these events, it came to be that his master's wife lifted up her eyes to Joseph, and said, Lie with me. But he refused, and said to his master's wife, Look, my master does not know what is with me in the house. He has given into my hand all that he has. No one is greater in this house than I, and he has not withheld whatever from me by you, because you are his wife. And how shall I do this great evil and sin against Elohim? And it came to be, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he did not listen to her, to lie with her, to be with her. And it came to be on a certain day, when Joseph went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was inside, that she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. But he left his garment in her hand, and fled, and ran outside. And it came to be, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand, and fled outside, that she called to the men of her house, and spoke to them, saying, See, he has brought in to us an Ivri, to mock us. He came in to me, to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And it came to be, when he heard that I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me, and fled, and went outside. And she kept his garment with her until his master came home. And she spoke to him these same words, saying, The Ivri servant whom you brought to us came in to me, to mock me. So it came to be, as I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled outside. And it came to be, when his master heard the words which his wife spoke to him, saying, Your servant did to me according to these words, that his displeasure burned. Then Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the sovereign's prisoners were confined. And he was there in the prison. But Yahweh was with Joseph, and extended kindness to him, and he gave him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. And the prison warden gave into the hand of Joseph all the prisoners who were in the prison, and whatever was done there was his doing. The prison warden did not look into any point that was under Joseph's hand, because Yahweh was with him, and whatever he did, Yahweh made it prosper. Chapter 40. And after these events, it came to be that the cupbearer and the baker of the sovereign of Mitzrayim sinned against their master, the sovereign of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh was wroth in his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. So he put them in confinement in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison, the place where Joseph was a prisoner. And the captain of the guard put Joseph in charge of them, and he served them. So they were in confinement for some time. Then the cupbearer and the baker of the sovereign of Mitzrayim, who were confined in the prison, dreamed a dream, both of them, each man's dream in one night, and each man's dream with its own interpretation. And Joseph came in to them in the morning, and looked at them, and saw that they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in confinement of his master's house, saying, Why do you look so sad today? And they said to him, We each have dreamed a dream, and there is no one to interpret it. And Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to Elohim? Relate them to me, please. So the chief cupbearer related his dream to Joseph, and said to him, See, in my dream a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded. Its blossoms shot forth, and its clusters brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, so I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said to him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days Pharaoh is going to lift up your head and restore you to your place, and you shall put Pharaoh's cup in his hand according to the former ruling when you were his cupbearer. But remember me when it is well with you, and please show kindness to me, and mention me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this house. For truly I was stolen away from the land of the Ivrim, and also I have done naught that they should put me into the dungeon. And the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, and he said to Joseph, I also was in my dream, and saw 3 white baskets were on my head. And in the uppermost basket all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, and the birds ate them out of the basket on my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days Pharaoh is going to lift off your head from you, and hang you on a tree, and the birds shall eat your flesh from you. And on the 3rd day, Pharaoh's birthday, it came to be that he made a feast for all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief cupbearer to his post of cupbearer again, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. And the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Chapter 41. And it came to be at the end of 2 years' time that Pharaoh had a dream, and saw him standing by the river, and saw 7 cows coming up out of the river, fine looking and fat, and they fed amongst the reeds.